What does God most care about? I'd like to make the case that God most cares about good and evil. More than anything else, God cares about how his creatures treat each other. His creatures are us. It's clearly important because I don't think a lot of religious people have taught that God cares most about how you treat your fellow human being. So let me give you argument number one. Every society that I know of, every ancient society of which I am aware, had a flood story, or as anthropologists call it, a flood myth. Of course, the most famous one is in the Bible, when Noah was saved. That's Noah's Ark. I don't care if you believe in the story or not, as literal. It doesn't matter to me. The lesson is what matters to me. What is being taught matters to me. Why did God destroy the world? It says so. Because it was filled with people doing evil toward one another. That's why. The land was filled with Hamas. Hamas is a Hebrew word often meaning violence. Evil is obviously the intended term. That's why God destroys the world, because it was filled with evil. By the way, that was unique. Of all the stories I have read, that was the one that only emphasized the moral issue, evil. Argument number two. Who was saved? Noah and his family. Why is Noah saved? Because he's a good man. And Noah was a righteous man in his generations. Often in other stories, there are a whole host of other reasons why who was ever saved is saved. They did a God a favor, the God liked them, the person was a handsome man, but just moral, he was a good person. I couldn't find that in another story. Argument number three. God is repeatedly described as a moral being. Here's an example. God is not partial, takes no bribe, executes justice for the orphan and the widow, loves the stranger, provides them with food and clothing, from Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Bible. Constantly, God is described as good, because that's the most important thing you can be. Number four, the fundamental human division in the Hebrew Bible is not between the Jew and the non-Jew, but between good people and bad people. That's why so many non-Jews are described so positively in the Hebrew Bible. You know who saves Moses? The daughter of Pharaoh. The Pharaoh ordered that the baby Hebrew boys be drowned in the Nile. Moses was put in a little ark, the same word as Noah's Ark, interestingly, in a little box, and floated down the Nile by his mom, and the daughter of Pharaoh saves him. Imagine that. You imagine how Pharaoh was hated by the ancient Israelites, and they depicted the daughter of the Pharaoh as a saintly human being, because it just divides. That's the key. The major division in the human race is not between religions. It's not between ethnicities. It's not between races. It's not between the sexes. It's between the decent and the indecent. That has been the motto of my life. That is how I divide the world. That's why I have such contempt for leftism. It doesn't divide the world between good and bad. It divides the world between rich and poor. That's how Marx divided it. That's how every communist regime has divided it. That's how the left still divides it. And between colors, black and white. Argument number five. The Hebrew Bible, therefore, God is preoccupied with the treatment of animals. Morality includes how you treat an animal. You know that animals made it into the 10 Commandments? Most people have no idea about that. Just as you're commanded to rest on the Sabbath day, so is your animal. There are so many laws pertaining to animals, people don't even know it. You can't put two animals of different species on the same plow because they're different sizes and they walk at different speeds, so they'll pull at each other. Or you are not allowed to muzzle an ox while it works in the fields. It has to be free to eat the whole time it's working. These are biblical laws. Number 6, the prophets, they are preoccupied with what? Moral behavior. How do you treat other people? And God is repeatedly depicted as more concerned with moral behavior than with anything else. This is biblical. Ready? From Micah. God has told you, O man, O human being. The word for human being is used, not man even. Adam, the word, it's fascinating. So it's universal. What is good and what the Lord demands of you only. This is amazing. I translated it because I know this Hebrew very well. They don't always use only, but that's what it means. Only to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Here's another one from the prophet Amos. Hate evil and love good and establish justice. This is all in the name of God. And my favorite verse from the whole Bible, from Psalms, those of you who love God must hate evil. It's a command. If you don't hate evil, you don't love God. Okay, so do rabbis, priests, and ministers, do they teach this? This is what God most demands of you, or do they teach something else? This is not the only thing God demands of us. He wants us to be holy. He wants us to do a whole host of things. But the most important is how we treat another human being. We're all God's children. Parents care how their children treat each other.